Prologue. To feel held in love. David was an interesting mix. He was an engaging male in his 40s who had deep feeling for women, for sex, and for honest direct contact. Yet, he also lived under the shadow of his wound, and his life was marked by a series of love affairs that had never gone very far. While he had no trouble finding attractive female partners, the story was always the same. He would wind up either judging them and pushing them away or holding back until they finally left. He desperately wanted love in his life, and as he looked back on all the women he had split up with, he admitted that several of them could have made good mates. Yet, at the time, he had always found something to justify his dissatisfaction and subsequent exit. He had entered therapy because he wanted to find out what was wrong with his love life. 6 months earlier, he had embarked on a new relationship with a woman whom he loved more wildly and intensely than anyone before. They shared a strong emotional bond, great talks, and terrific sex. But at a certain point, he pulled back and cut off the relationship with Lynn because he couldn't trust her and feared how much she could hurt him. In our first few sessions, David remained focused on Lynn and her untrustworthiness. But I eventually steered the focus back to what was going on within him. He had grown up with a mother who was erratic, depressed, and largely unavailable for long periods of time. And when she was there, she had little to give emotionally. Nothing David did, from getting angry to withdrawing, brought him the attention and love he needed. As a result, he simply didn't trust that love could really be there for him or that he could be loved for who he was. He would wind up trying to prove his worth by impressing women, all the while resenting them for having to do this. Underneath David's engaging exterior was a seething resentment he could barely recognize, much less express. Because in his family, anger had been the ultimate sin that warranted rejection. So one way he expressed his anger was to push away anyone who tried to get close. He was essentially saying to all the women who wanted him, "Get lost. I don't trust your interest and attraction because you could never really love me." The distrust he felt toward Lynn reverberated down the corridors of his whole past, a whole lifetime of never feeling fully loved or embraced. After a number of weeks of working with him and understanding his wounding, David's interest in Lynn started to revive and he wanted to see her again, even though it felt dangerous. As he considered this, there was a wonderful moment when he looked up as if gazing to heaven and asked, almost rhetorically, "So, is that it? You love someone and open yourself and feel vulnerable? You let them in and they become really important to you, and then they can just do anything they want? Walk away, hurt you, lie to you, and there's nothing you can do about it? Is that what love's about?" The rawness of David's word touched a chord that resonated in me, putting me in touch with my own experience of what he was talking about. And I smiled at recognition. I reflected on how, when you really want deep connection with someone, when that passion wells up from deep within, it's like a wave you can't control. It simply busts you open. Not only can't you control the wave of feeling, you also can't control how the other person will respond to you. I thought of times I'd felt raw like that, and the fear and instinct to protect myself that came along with it. When I feel this open to someone, I can really feel the depth and power of it, David went on to say. I know this is what I really want with someone, and that's where the real juice lies. He was speaking of what sweet edge of surrender where the force of love carries us along, making us want to keep opening without putting on the brakes. But it feels so dangerous, like I could get killed. David was standing on a razor's edge, uncertain whether to give in to the pull of his attraction to Lynn, which felt terribly risky, or stand back and play it safe. I asked him, if you could have whatever you want in this relationship, what would that be? The first words out of his mouth were a plaintive, "I don't know." I encouraged him to sit longer with that question, look inside, and allow an answer to arise from deeper within. After a pause, he said, "I'd like to be able to trust her and know that I was really loved." Hardly had these words left his mouth than he qualified them. But maybe that's too much to ask for. What would it be like, I asked, to feel love like that? And what would that give you? A longer pause now and then. a sense of acceptance, of being valued for who I am. My next question was, and what would that give you if you really felt accepted and valued? An even longer pause this time, after which he said softly, I'm so tired of being separate and alone. I really want to feel connected. David had often talked about a recurring sense of isolation that left him feeling as though he were lost in this world and didn't belong anywhere. This was the first time he had directly acknowledged his longing to feel connected. Yet, I could sense that something more was stirring in him. I invited him to continue the inquiry, asking him what that sense of connection would give him. This time the answer came quickly before he could think about it. A feeling of belonging, like I was cherished just for who I was, though I'm not sure what that would be like, because I've never experienced that. The color rose in David's face after these words, and I recognized the leap they represented for him. We talked about this for a while, acknowledging how hard it is for men to recognize a desire to belong and feel cherished, and how it is even rarer and more vulnerable to admit this to another man. David searched my face for signs of judgment, so I let him know I was right there with him, appreciating his willingness to share this with me. We sat for a while in silence, both sensing what it was like for him to acknowledge his longing to be loved like this. Part of me wanted to stop there and leave well enough alone. Yet, having come this far, I sensed that there was something more to explore here. After making sure he was still okay, I said, imagine being cherished and see what that gives you on the inside, what it allows you to experience inside yourself. He closed his eyes for a while and then said, it feels like being held in someone's loving arms. I can actually feel that a little bit right now. David and I were both noticeably softening here, together. The warmth, clarity, and groundedness that David was experiencing were filling the room. Having felt so disconnected from his family as a child, David's willingness to acknowledge his need to belong, to feel cherished, and to be held in love represented an important step toward healing his alienation. In directly acknowledging these deep needs and allowing them to be there, David was holding his own experience in warmth and openness. And this gave him a taste of what it was like to feel held in love and acceptance, which is what he was looking for. We had come a long way, and again I was tempted to leave it at that. Yet before I knew it, the next question sprang to my lips. What's that like for you to feel held like that? How does that affect you in your body? The answer this time was right at hand because David was already there. It feels like I've landed on the ground which is holding me up. There's a warmth in my chest and a fullness in my belly. What happens when you stay present with the feelings in your belly and chest? It's relaxing. Something in me lets down. I encouraged him to let himself relax into this. Since this was a new and powerful experience for him, it was important to let his body get to know it more fully. After a while, he said, there's a blissful sense of warmth spreading through my body as if it's permeating all my cells. David was experiencing what it was like to let love move freely through him, and I encouraged him to keep letting himself have this full body blissful experience. And then a final question. What's that like to let love move through you? It's like coming in for a landing and settling in. It's like deep rest. It feels like all of me is here. There's no need to prove yourself right now. No, nothing to prove. I can just be. We had reached the bottom of the inquiry. He had landed in the only place there is to land, in his own nature, that presence of openness and warmth that we call love, goodness, or beauty. And he felt this in his body as a fullness in the belly and an openness in the heart. This was, at bottom, David's deepest wish to go beyond having to prove himself in order to win love, to relax and settle into being himself, to reconnect with his vitality center and his heart. Recognizing this, he felt a deep sense of peace washing over him as he let himself rest there, present in himself, to himself, with himself. This proved to be a major turning point in our work together. David had uncovered a clear, flowing spring in the middle of the desert of alienation where he had wandered all his life, and this allowed him to approach his relationship with Lynn in a new way, from a stronger place, more rooted in himself. Love as a holding environment. The key moments in this session were David's recognition of his deep need to feel held in love and his discovery of what that holding felt like, which allowed him to relax, let down, and settle into himself. David's distrust of his mother had led him to fear and resent women all his life. But at an even deeper level, his wound showed up as a distrust of life, a difficulty recognizing that his whole existence was held by something larger than he could trust. What exactly is the nature of this holding that we need? Consider for a moment how all things in this universe are held by something larger. The earth is held in space, which is the all encompassing environment that allows it to move and turn freely. DNA is held within cells, and cells are held within the larger tissues and organs of the body. Leaves are held by a tree, trees are held by the earth, and growing children are held within a family environment. The British child psychiatrist D.W. Winnicott defined the family as a holding environment that allows and supports the healthy growth of the child. Beyond the physical holding that is essential for children, Winnicott's notion refers to a benevolent emotional environment that a family can provide. What type of holding is most essential for human development? Imagine picking up a baby bird that has fallen from its nest. If you hold it too tightly, you crush it. If you hold it too loosely, it falls to the ground. So you want to cradle it in your hands, but you also don't want to press too hard against it. These then are the two essential aspects of holding: contact and space. Contact involves meeting, seeing, touching, attunement, connection, and care. When children experience good contact, they are more likely to develop confidence, inner support, and self acceptance. But good contact by itself is not enough. Children also need to be given space, room to be themselves. Contact without space can become intrusive, claustrophobic, smothering. Winnicott stressed the importance of allowing infants to rest in their own unstructured being, without constant intrusion. When parents fail to provide the spaciousness, children feel smothered or controlled. Then they become overly oriented towards pleasing the parents and fitting into the parents' designs, thus losing touch with their own sense of being. When parents are non intrusive, when they recognize and honor their child's individual rhythms and needs, when they respect the child's space instead of continually interrupting the child's going on being, this helps the child rest at ease in himself or herself. Of course, if this spaciousness is not balanced by good contact, that too becomes problematic, for then the child feels abandoned. Thus, there are two general types of wounding around love that lead to fear of intimacy. When parents act intrusively and do not provide enough space, then children grow up fearing that close contact with others threatens them with engulfment, control, manipulation, or violation. And when parents do not provide warm emotional contact, then children grow up fearing that relationships will lead to abandonment, loss, or deprivation. Engulfment fears generally lead to withdrawal in relationships, while abandonment fears lead to clinging. Though these two types of wounding can also show up in a variety of other symptoms. Many people suffer from some of each, resulting in push pull relationships where one partner pursues when the other is pulling away, but then retreats when the other comes forward. When parents do provide enough of both contact and space, this creates a holding environment that nurtures healthy development and healthy relationship. In this kind of friendly environment, children can feel safe to relax, let go, and trust. And this helps them to keep the heart channel open and to experience its delicate sensitivity, which the Tibetan meditation master Chogyam Trungpa called the soft spot. The two aspects of holding, contact and space, attunement and letting be, correspond to the two core qualities of love, warmth, and openness that are native to our being. Warmth is a natural impulse to reach outside ourselves, touch and make contact, to welcome, embrace, and take delight in. Openness is our capacity to let be, to allow, to let in and receive others as they are, in a gentle, spacious way, without having to dominate them or bend them to our will. This kind of letting be is the greatest kindness we can offer those we love. Taken together, openness and warmth allow us to recognize and appreciate the natural beauty at the core of everything and everyone, in short, to love. Even though these two qualities are part of our native birthright, they need an initial spark to ignite them. For children, that spark is knowing that they are loved. And children know they are loved when they feel genuinely held. That is, when the parents provide both warm contact and gentle space that lets them be. To feel held in love, then, is the key, as it was for David, to letting down our guard so that we can learn to relax, let love flow through us, and reside in the essential openness of our own heart.